Honored to have Nikki Haley with us right now, the Republican presidential candidate, our ambassador to the United Nations during the Trump years, former South Carolina governor. Ambassador, very good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Neil. It's great to be with you from Iowa. I was able to drive a combine yesterday. We're having a good time, and we're making some ground.
All right, you certainly are. And I've been seeing not only polls in that state, but nationally, where you're dead even for second, it would seem, with Ron DeSantis. And I do want to touch on those, Ambassador, but I did want to get your thoughts on this scary, could have been a scary incident for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where they seized a guy who had dressed himself up as a marshal. He was loaded for bear. We don't know what his intentions were. We do know that he does not enjoy Secret Service protection. This kind of issue comes up after these kind of incidents, as you're aware. Do you think all presidential candidates should have Secret Service protection, no matter who they are?
Look, it's tough, Neil. I'll tell you that we had an event, and when I came out of the event, someone came out and lodged at me and tried to get into our car, and we had quite an incident too. It's tough, you know, when you're dealing with the public and you're dealing with people that have high emotions and feel a certain way. We all face a threat in doing that. But you know, I certainly am not sitting there asking for it. I think it's up to, you know, the government to decide when a presidential candidate should get it. But, you know, I feel for what happened to Kennedy, and I know the feeling of what that is. We face those as well, and that's kind of, it comes with the territory.
This isn't your field, and I apologize for even pursuing it with another question, Ambassador, but there is a slight difference with a Robert F. Kennedy Jr., considering what happened to his father, considering what happened to his uncle. And I'm wondering whether that should have been considered. That wouldn't be your call, of course. That would be technically the president's call or the Treasury's call in charge of the Secret Service. I understand that. But that he is not like the other candidates, yourself included, given that family history.
I mean, look, if anybody doesn't feel safe, you know, they should be able to go and apply and say, look, we need some extra security there. But at the end of the day, that's up to an administration to decide. Again, we're all candidates. We're all out there. We're all doing, you know, what we need to do to save this country. And there's consequences with that. And so we have to take extra precautions in one way or the other. I know some of the candidates, they have lots of security detail. Some of us don't. We choose to have that money go to TV, but that's kind of the price you pay when you go and you try and do something like this.
All right, and I do want to assure you know, viewers here, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does have his own private security detail. I'm just passing on along because of the news from last night. Ambassador, now to news today. As you know, we're entering day 2 of this United Auto Workers strike. We understand, Ambassador, that Chrysler is the latest company to have offered a 21% pay raise for workers over those 4 years. That kind of mimics what Ford and GM had offered, but that was quickly turned down. What do you make of that and where this is going? If they're turning down a raise like that, what does that tell you?
Well, I think that's it tells you that when you have the most pro-union president and he touts that he is emboldening the unions, this is what you get. And I'll tell you who pays for it is the taxpayers. You know, here, from what I understand, the union is asking for a 40% raise. You know, the companies have come back with a 20% raise. I think any of the taxpayers would love to have a 20% raise and think that's great. But, you know, the problem is we're all going to suffer from this. This is going to cause things to go up. And, you know, this is going to last a while. But, you know, when you have a president that's constantly saying, go union, this is what you get. The unions get emboldened, and then they start asking for things that, you know, that companies have a tough time doing. And so I don't think government should get involved in this. These are private sector matters. But I do think the tone of how a president talks about unions and how a president emboldens them does play a role in this. And we're seeing what Biden has done play a role in this.
Do you and would you draw a line, Ambassador, if you were president of the United States, for union jobs versus any jobs? This president clearly does prioritize union jobs, and he's made very clear here that union workers deserve more, that their pay increases have not come close to the success and the money that all of these auto companies have enjoyed. What do you say to that?
Well, I'll tell you, in South Carolina as governor, I mean, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. I recruited Mercedes-Benz. I recruited Volvo. We had 5 international tire companies. But I was a union buster. I didn't want to bring in companies that were unionized simply because I didn't want to have that change the environment in our state. We very much watched out for workers. But the way we watched out for workers was we didn't encourage middlemen between companies and their workers. We encouraged the workers to have that direct communication with them. And so I would always tell our CEOs, it's really important that you let the workers be a part of the solutions with your company. It's really important that if you're going to have them work on a Sunday, you give them notice and let them do that. It's really important that you have family days so that families can see what their loved ones are doing. It's that communication between management and the workers that I think is so important. You put middlemen like a union in there where they are just making money off the workers. I think it's a lose-lose situation. It's a lose for the companies. It's a lose for the workers. And that's why I think it's wrong to embolden the unions. Instead, you should embolden the workers and the communication of them having with management.
It's very tough language, Governor, and I'm just wondering how union workers who are hearing you now might feel about that. Ronald Reagan is the last Republican president to have won the union vote back in 1984, did so in 1980 as well. What are the odds that you could do that? Go ahead.
Ask the people in South Carolina. I mean, you know what we had was we had good working environment, we had good pay, we had great communication, and our companies took care of our people. But I was on our companies constantly to take care of our people because I didn't think a middle person needed to do that. And so workers were very happy. They felt heard. They felt like companies were listening to them. And we need to get back to that. That's the focus of where we should be, really building bridges is between the workers and the management of these companies. You know, you don't need a union boss coming in, taking money and dues from workers, telling companies what they have to do, all because it's a win for them and it's a loss for everybody else. And, it drives up the cost for taxpayers. That's a dangerous thing. But I didn't have any problems in South Carolina, and we didn't have any unionization. If anything, we went and we fought against the National Labor Relations Board. They tried to stop Boeing from producing because they thought that they didn't want us building this plant because it would hurt the workers in Washington State. And we said, no, we're going to embolden workers in South Carolina, and we're going to let them do what they need to, and we're not going to let the unions go and pick these fights. We're going to let the people decide what they want to do. And in the end, it was a win-win. We need to get back to that in this country.
Ambassador, you were a very successful governor in South Carolina, yet Donald Trump leads you by 28 points in the latest South Carolina poll. Does that trouble you?
Doesn't trouble me at all. We just got started in terms of the debate season. Post Labor Day, you're kicking things off. We had an event in North Charleston, South Carolina. We had 1,000 people there. We were in Indian Land the week before in South Carolina. We had 1,000 people there too. The momentum is good. The strength is good. We've got the phones ringing. We've got money coming into NikkiHaley.com. But we've got a country to save. And it is time for a new generational leader. We have to start focusing on that. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But more than that, we should want to make sure that we never have a President Kamala Harris. That's why primaries are important. But part of paying attention in a primary is to make sure that you elect someone that can win a general election.
They know you, right, Governor? They know you very well, and many of them harken back to your success. Yet I notice in this same poll that only 1 out of 3 South Carolina primary voters say that Joe Biden won the last election fair and square. What do you think of that?
I think people were suspicious of the elections. I think that they were worried that, you didn't have voter ID in states like we have in South Carolina. You had a lot of mail-out balloting that they were concerned about. So I think the goal is to bring back the trust of the American people. In South Carolina, we passed voter ID. We said if you have to show a picture ID to get Sudafed, if you have to go show a picture ID to get on a plane, you should have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. We need that across this country. Voter ID is incredibly important. And so I think South Carolinians are rightly concerned that we want to make sure there's voter ID across this country so that no one ever doubts what's happening with elections.
You have been very tough on foreign policy, and it scored you impressive debate points when you took on Ramaswamy on this very issue about our role in a world order here. But I am wondering about the direction and maybe the mixed signals we're getting out of the Republican Party these days. Ambassador, not too long ago, Congressman Chip Roy of Texas got a lot of applause from conservatives at a prayer breakfast for saying that we got to stop Ukraine's blank check. Other Republicans are saying it's not worth it. It's time to stop making this another Vietnam. You said, don't pull in Afghanistan here. Don't pull out now. You seem to be at cross purposes with many in your own party.
Look, I always speak hard truths because I think the American people deserve it. I think that we have to look at this, for what it is. America can never be so arrogant to think that we don't need friends. We should never be so arrogant to think that another 9/11 won't happen. What you have is this pro-American, freedom-loving country, democracy, that was invaded by a thug. The same thug who held hands with President Xi prior to the Olympics, and they named themselves unlimited partners. Remember, dictators tell you exactly what they're going to do. They're very transparent. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. They did. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched them. China said that Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said after Ukraine, it's Poland and the Baltics. Neil, that's a war. We're trying to prevent war. My husband's in the military. The last thing I want is for our men and women to go to war. So the way you do that is you make sure Ukraine wins. That does not mean you give cash to Ukraine. I don't believe in giving straight up cash to any country. That doesn't mean you put troops on the ground.
No, I understand
it means
that,
we
but
work with our allies to make sure they have the
there,
equipment and the ammunition to win.
I apologize. There are many House GOP members who want to strip out that, I believe, the $24 billion targeted for Ukraine in a defense appropriations measure. What do you tell them?
I tell them that we have spent 3.5% of our defense budget. Percentage of GDP, 11 European countries have put in more than us. That's a small price to pay to prevent war. That's a small price to pay to prevent my husband and other military members from having to go to war. A win for Russia is a win for China. We can never forget that. If Ukraine wins, it's the biggest message to China in terms of invading Taiwan. Why do the Taiwanese support America helping Ukraine so much? Because they know if Ukraine wins, China will leave them alone. We have to remember that.
Nikki Haley, thank you very much for joining us. Very good seeing you. I know you'll be all over Iowa today. We look forward to seeing you at the big debate in California. Nikki
Absolutely.
Haley.
Go to NikkiHaley.com and join our fight.
I had a feeling you'd get that in there. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Very good seeing you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.